loved iCarly. I've seen episodes of iCarly with David Archuleta, the Plain White Tees, Victoria Justice, and numbers of other celebrities have guest starred in iCarly. Celebrities you wouldn't even think would drop by iCarly have, and I think that's really what jumped out at One Direction. And when they were approached by Nickelodeon to be on this hit television show, they jumped at the opportunity because it provided them with a fantastic promotional form. If anything, they had a debut album with a debut single, and they wanted to promote it. And I think that this is going to sell more copies of the album for One Direction, if anything, and lead to the release of a second album, which is going to get over the top, because they're going to remember these guys for being on shows like iCarly. They're going to remember them for doing interviews for channels like Disney and Family. And I think that One Direction is definitely going to prosper, if anything, from being on iCarly. If anybody prospers from this, it's not going to be Miranda Cosgrove and Jeanette McCarthy. The show will prosper from ratings and will be a pure indication as to what direction the show's headed in for the next 6 months. But the ones who are going to prosper from this the most are definitely going to be One Direction, because I think they did a fantastic job. I haven't seen much in the way of acting from One Direction, but I think the script was actually really cool. How the One Direction band played up being sick, how they were giving orders to the cast of iCarly to do this and do that for them, and then eventually they overcome the odds and we get a performance of What Makes You Beautiful on iCarly, which of course is the main reason why One Direction was on the show. And I want to emphasize that if it hadn't been for the release of their debut album, I don't think we would have ever seen One Direction on iCarly. And for a half-an-hour show that ran for about 22 minutes without commercials, it was fantastic for what they did. I think the show could have been and could have ran for an hour. There was no reason why it shouldn't have been an hour, especially with such a special guest appearing on iCarly. I mean, One Direction, a phenomenal band. Like I said, a British version of the Backstreet Boys, if anything. And you remember back to years like 95 and 96 how popular they were, along with other bands like NSYNC and Westlife. I think that One Direction, with how popular they've become in such a quick amount of time, could have went 1 hour on iCarly, and they could have done something special. They could have more special appearances on the show. Maybe had the cast of Victorious come in, maybe. Some other teen shows could have took part in this one. And I think that One Direction probably could have made a whole week out of it. They could have appeared on a different Nickelodeon show every night of the week, which would have been really cool for fans of One Direction to get a chance to see them act on various different shows. It would have given One Direction a bit of experience acting, because they would have been able to play different roles on different shows, and it would have allowed them to promote their album more, which they're doing on Twitter and Facebook more often. And I think that it should be done more in a public form, like on television. With more interviews for the guys, would definitely open up the door for more concert dates and more appearances. I think they could have made a whole week out of this, and there was no reason why they couldn't have gone an hour. I definitely rate their performance on iCarly anywhere from 6 to 7 out of 10 stars, honestly, because they did a fantastic job, and I think we're going to see more guest appearances from them on other shows, if not Nickelodeon. They're going to be on other television shows, probably with more mature themes on them. Definitely, it was better than what I anticipated. Initially, like I said here at the top of the show, was just anticipating One Direction to come in, perform a song, and that was going to be it. I wasn't expecting, a full script for the guys. They got that. They even made reference to the Buttersock, which is something that was familiar with the Sam character portrayed by Jeanette McCarthy, which was kind of cool. They got the Buttersock reference in there, which has been referenced many times through the seasons of iCarly. And I think that the cast of iCarly and One Direction definitely created magic on the set of Nickelodeon. Dan Schneider has a lot to be proud of. I mean, he's gotten a number of guest stars for Nickelodeon shows over the years, but I think One Direction was gold for those guys. And Nickelodeon spent on that show, that for a fact, and Nickelodeon gave them the form to promote their album. I mean, just think about how many times that promo for I Go One Direction was aired leading up to the premiere of the show. It was aired probably during every commercial break on Nickelodeon. So the promotional and the commercial advertising was there, and people heard about it on Twitter and Facebook. One Direction were promoting it on Twitter and Facebook. Their fans knew they were going to be premiering on there, and of course, if you're a fan of One Direction, what are you going to do? You're going to follow them everywhere they go. So immediately fans who probably have watched iCarly for years watched the thing, and fans who have never seen or heard of iCarly watched it for the first time. So iCarly gained more fans than they had going into the show, which was really cool. I think that a variety of age groups, if anything, watched this. Fans who probably had never watched iCarly before in the past watched it. You know, I really didn't make a habit of watching iCarly years ago. You know, I knew of the show, I knew what the concept of the show was, but I was more of a Disney fanatic, if anything. And I think that once I started watching iCarly, it amazed me how quick the concepts of the shows jumped out at me, what kind of message they were trying to convey with each particular show. And what really jumped out about me about iCarly was it had more guest stars than probably any children's television show on Nickelodeon. Occasionally on Nickelodeon you'll have a special voiceover for an animated character. If the show's of any popularity and the ratings are high on the show, you'll have a scattered guest star appearing on there. But it seems like guest stars appear a lot on iCarly. Everyone from Michelle Obama to the Plain White Tees to David Archuleta to here now recently One Direction. I think that iCarly's going to be around for a long time, and I think that Miranda Cosgrove is really enjoying herself with the role. She's not as big as a Miley Cyrus or a Hilary Duff. She's got a long way to go in terms of that, and being as successful as someone as Hilary Duff, who just recently had a child, had a story about herself published on MSN.com. But I mean, Miranda Cosgrove has done more than probably any Nickelodeon teen idol out there. She's described as the queen of pop music, and definitely she has come a long way since premiering at the age of 13 years of age. You know, it's amazing seeing how much she's accomplished in such a short time. I mean, many of Miranda Cosgrove's singles are played on syndicated radio shows, and I think it's awesome how she's just jumped from someone who was 13 years of age, nobody really knew anything about, to being a teen idol who's recorded albums, who's appeared in movies, had a hit television show, sold more merchandise than any teen idol Nickelodeon has produced. And I think that One Direction's appearance on iCarly is really going to put her over the top. And I think that we're going to probably see more work coming from Miranda Cosgrove and One Direction over the years. I would love to see them record a music video potentially down the road. As I mentioned, a lot of videos of One Direction being on iCarly are posted on the official website of iCarly.com. You're going to have to be a citizen of the United States to get access to the official website of iCarly. YTV here in Canada have a sub-site for iCarly, and if you're a resident of Canada, you'll be automatically referred to the YTV version of the website, which isn't as detailed as the American version of iCarly.com, but they do have a lot of videos and a lot of content up there for you to check out and browse through. I love the fact that they're Java-based, both websites for the US and Canada, so make sure you jump on there. And if you have a video yourself doing something funny, send it to iCarly.com. And it seemed like One Direction had a lot of fun on there, and what told me that they had a lot of fun on there was the reference of the butter sock. And you know, when somebody references the butter sock in a script for iCarly, you know they're having the time of their life. And I think we're going to see more guest star appearances on iCarly. Guest stars you probably wouldn't think would ever appear on iCarly are going to come to iCarly because of One Direction's appearance on there, and definitely the promotional form was there. And I can tell just from looking at how much advertising was done for it, how detailed the script was, how fun everybody had on the set. I think that, you know, it's just going to lead to prosperity, if anything. And I enjoyed watching it. To be honest with you, I'd watch it again. I will tweet the I Go One Direction special for you on our Twitter page at HGW Entertainment Jonathan Clarke 1 over the next couple of days, so expect that to drop in a 1 or 2 part series. If you didn't get a chance to see I Go One Direction, I will tweet it on our Twitter page to watch via YouTube, which is a tremendous source to see these children's television shows. I know a lot of Victoria's shows are up there. They got a lot of iCarly's, a lot of Drake and Josh's. Virtually every Disney show is on YouTube, so if you didn't get a chance to see it, I will tweet it for you in a 1 or 2 part series. So follow us on Twitter if you aren't already at twitter.com/JonathanClarke1 for a full video of I Go One Direction, and you can tell us what you think of it if you haven't seen it. So you can head to our Twitter page to get access to that. I loved it. You know, at least 7 out of 10 stars is what I'm rating the thing, and I think that everybody's going to prosper from this. But the big thing about this is the ones that are going to prosper the most from this is One Direction, because album sales are going to go up. More people are going to be talking about One Direction than they were before, and I'm really looking forward to finding out what direction One Direction's career goes in. You know, it's funny saying what direction One Direction's career will go in, but it's kind of a tongue twister, if anything. But I'm really looking forward to finding out what direction One Direction's career goes in. Try saying that 5 times fast, because I tell you, you'll have difficulty doing it, and you'll probably fuck it up. But, you know, One Direction, I mentioned here earlier on the show, you know, kind of put me in mind of an updated Backstreet Boys. You might have a different comparison for One Direction. We invite you to tell us what your comparisons of One Direction and some past boy bands have been on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. There are many comparisons you can probably reference One Direction's appearance and appeal to. But I'm just saying the Backstreet Boys because I look back at the success of all of the Backstreet Boys since at least 95 or 96 and the release of their first album, which was appropriately titled Backstreet Boys with no subtitle or anything, and how successful that was, how many appearances they were making on television and radio, how much their singles were played on syndicated radio programming, and One Direction seemed to be similar to that in a lot of ways. They're not as popular as the Backstreet Boys were. They're probably never going to be as popular as the Backstreet Boys were. But I think that if shows like iCarly and Victorious were around when the Backstreet Boys were big in hit music, I think that they would have been on shows like this because I think that shows like iCarly and Victorious have such a positive message that gets out there a lot, but should be getting out there a lot more. I think that Nickelodeon's programming is top notch. They definitely know what they're doing when they're looking for talent. I mean, they have auditions where about 500 to 600 children show up to a time, and they pick the best of the best to be on these shows, and they do such a fantastic job. They do just as good a job as Disney, and I think that's really what's going to elevate them to being the #1 children's company in the world. I mean, you look at the children's programming they have for anyone between the ages of 5 to 7 years of age. Nickelodeon inspirations behind Dora the Explorer, George Shrinks, Diego Go, so many wonderful shows that you wouldn't think Nickelodeon had a hand in. But you wouldn't believe how many popular television shows, both for